My name is Ruby Bailey. I'm 35 years old, and the story I'm about to tell happened last November when the heaviest rain in 20 years poured down on Humboldt County and turned our little hilltop home into a ticking clock. I work fixing heating and air conditioning systems. It's not glamorous. It's cold crawls under houses, blistered knuckles, and customers who look at you like you're part of the wallpaper. But it paid enough for my son and me to live quietly. Quietly, until Jake got sick. Jake was 8. He had a congenital heart condition that meant his body never got to forget how fragile it was. He depended on a breathing machine day and night. The kind of machine that hums like a tiny engine and makes your home feel less like a home and more like a hospital room you can't escape. But Jake never once complained. On those cold evenings when I came home with my hair damp from rain and my hands smelling like metal and dust, he'd be waiting by the door. He'd tilt his head, those big round eyes, clear as water, and ask me like he was the parent and I was the child. "Mom, are you tired? Let me get you some water." Every time he said it, my throat tightened. Because what kind of world forces an 8-year-old to learn how to live breath by breath just to make his mother feel okay? We lived with my mother, Margaret, in an old 2-story wooden house on the hills. My dad built it with his hands, using pine from the forest behind it. When the wind blew through the porch, pine resin and cinnamon candles would mix together, and for a second, just a second, it smelled like the childhood I used to believe in. But after Jake's diagnosis, even that scent became painful, like opening a drawer and finding a photo of someone you lost. That week, it rained day and night. Weather reports warned us over and over, the worst rainfall in 2 decades. People evacuated nearby neighborhoods. But I told myself we were safe. The house was on high ground, far from landslide zones. I needed to believe that. So I prepared like preparation could stop fate. I fully charged the backup battery for Jake's breathing machine. I arranged his medications neatly on the shelf. I checked every outlet, every door, every window latch. I even taped plastic over the cracks where the wind liked to whisper through. Everything was ready. Everything. Except the one thing I couldn't control. The $175,000 in life insurance my father left behind. That money should have been comfort. A soft landing for my mother. A safety net for Jake. A little relief for me. Instead, it became a match struck in a room full of gasoline. My older brother, Aaron, believed he deserved the bigger share because he was the eldest. I didn't want more than what the policy said. I just wanted enough to cover my son's medical expenses. Enough to give Jake a chance at something that sounded like a miracle when the doctor said it out loud. But every time I brought it up, Aaron's eyes went cold. And the way he looked at me, it was like he saw me as a con artist. Like I was using my child's illness as a weapon to get money. That hurt more than any argument. Because strangers can misunderstand you and you can survive it. But when your own blood doubts a mother's love, there's nowhere left to put your trust. The day it all started unraveling, I sat alone in Jake's room, watching the machine blink steady green lights. The sound filled the space like a heartbeat we were borrowing. I checked the backup battery in the little tech room next to the kitchen. 1 weak bar. Not empty yet, but tired, like everything else in this house. I didn't know then that 3 days later, that last bar would become the edge of a cliff. Downstairs, the living room had always been the place for family gatherings. Thanksgiving, birthdays, cheap wine on New Year's Eve. But that afternoon, it felt like a courtroom. The wall clock ticked in the silence, sharp and judgmental. Aaron sat straight-backed in my dad's favorite armchair, staring out the window like the storm owed him money. Next to him was his wife, Jessica, sitting so still she looked frozen. Her hands twisted a handkerchief until the fabric wrinkled like a wounded thing. My mother stood by the fireplace, eyes full of worry. Jake sat in the corner with a picture book about stars, flipping pages quietly, like he'd already learned how to disappear when adults turned cruel. I swallowed. My palms were damp. "We need to discuss dividing Dad's life insurance money," I said softly. My mother nodded, like she'd rehearsed it. "According to the contract, it's split 3 ways. I get 50%, and you and Aaron get 25 each. I forced myself to say the numbers out loud, because numbers feel clean, even when the people aren't. "That's $87,500 for you, Mom," I said, "and $43,750 each for Aaron and me." Aaron's jaw tightened. Jessica didn't look up. I took a breath, and the words came out steadier than I felt. "I need to ask for something. Dr. Wilson mentioned a clinical trial. It could help Jake, help him not depend on the breathing machine." My voice cracked on the last word, and I hated myself for it. "It needs a $75,000 deposit." I want to borrow part from each of you. I'll pay it back in full when I sell my small plot of land." For a second, no one moved. Then Aaron looked at Jessica. They exchanged a glance that felt like a door locking. He shook his head. "Ruby," he said, like he was trying to sound reasonable, "I understand your situation, but Jessica and I have booked a trip to Europe. We need our entire share. We can't lend it to you." The air left my lungs. In the corner, Jake turned another page like he hadn't heard, like he was practicing being brave. I looked at my mother, because mothers are supposed to be the last place you can fall. "Mom," I said, quieter now, "I know it's your money, but could you help Jake? This trial has a high success rate. It could change everything." My mother's eyes flickered between me and Aaron. Her mouth trembled. I promised Aaron I'd help them with their trip," she whispered. "They're going through a difficult time, too." Aaron jumped in quickly, like he'd been waiting for the opening. "This trip is important," he said. "We made a non-refundable deposit. We have to pay the rest this week." Jessica finally looked up. Her eyes were wet. Her voice was small but clear. "We need this trip, Ruby. It's not just for rest." She swallowed hard. "We're trying to save our marriage." Something in her face made me pause, like there was a private grief behind her words. But then I heard the soft, mechanical hum from Jake's room upstairs, and reality yanked me back by the throat. "Save your marriage. Or save my child." My mother's voice cut through the room like a final verdict. "I'm sorry, Ruby," she said. "I can't lend it to you right now. I already promised Aaron and Jessica." The words hit me so hard I couldn't even react. I just sat there, blinking, like my body hadn't caught up to the fact that my own family had just told me where my son ranked on their list. Not first. Not even close. When I took Jake upstairs to bed that night, the rain started again, heavier than before, pounding the roof like fists. Jake climbed into bed carefully, wires and tubes shifting like fragile vines. He looked up at me and smiled anyway. "Mom," he asked softly, "are you mad?" I forced a smile so fast it hurt. "No, baby," I whispered, brushing his hair back. "I'm just thinking." He nodded, like he understood too much. And when he finally fell asleep, I sat beside him in the dark, staring at that breathing machine, at the blinking lights, at the battery indicator, like I could scare it into staying alive. Because somewhere deep in my bones, I felt it. The storm wasn't the real danger. The real danger was what money was turning my family into. And 3 days from then, I would learn exactly how far they were willing to go. The rain didn't let up. It didn't drizzle like a normal storm. It stayed, like it had decided Humboldt County was where it wanted to die. Day after day, the sky hung low and gray, and the wind rattled the old wooden house like it was trying to shake secrets out of the walls. I kept going to work anyway. Not because I was strong, because if I didn't keep moving, I'd collapse. Every morning, I'd check Jake's breathing machine first. The soft mechanical hum meant we were still alive. Then I'd pack my tools, kiss his forehead, and step out into the downpour like I was walking into a fight I couldn't win. Jake would always call after me. "Mom, be careful, roads are slippery." An 8-year-old with a failing heart warning me to be careful. That's what sickness does to kids. It makes them too wise. By the time I got home each night, my clothes would be heavy with rain and my shoulders would ache from carrying units, crawling through attics, pulling out clogged filters. The kind of work that leaves your hands raw and your thoughts numb. But the second I opened the front door, I'd smell cinnamon from Mom's candles, hear the steady ticking clock, and feel my chest tighten. Because inside this house, the storm wasn't outside anymore. It had moved into our living room. After that meeting, Erin didn't speak to me for a day. Neither did Mom. Not really. She moved around the kitchen like a ghost, washing dishes that were already clean, staring out the window as if she was waiting for something to appear in the rain. I tried not to beg again. I told myself, "Ruby, keep your pride, keep your dignity." But every time Jake coughed, every time the machine beeped, every time I looked at his tiny chest rising and falling like it was doing hard labor, pride felt like a luxury I couldn't afford. That's why when Aaron called the next evening and said, "Meet me at the Rusty Nail," my first thought wasn't suspicion. It was hope, a hope so stupid it makes me sick now. The Rusty Nail was the kind of bar where the lights are always dim and the floor always sticky. It smelled like old wood, spilled beer, and regret. The kind of place where people go when they need to say things they don't want said in their own homes. When I walked in, Aaron was already there. 3 empty whiskey glasses sat in front of him like trophies. His eyes were glassy, distant. For the first time in years, he didn't look like the confident older brother who always had an answer. He looked tired. I slid into the booth across from him and didn't even order a drink. I didn't trust myself to drink. Not with Jake at home and my nerves already frayed raw. Aaron stared at his hands for a long time before he spoke. "Ruby," he said quietly, "I'm not calling you here to fight." I didn't answer. I just waited. He took a breath like it hurt. "Jessica, she miscarried again." My stomach dropped. He nodded, eyes still on the table. "Third time. Doctor says she might not be able to carry a baby at all." I felt something sharp in my chest. Not sympathy exactly, more like shock. I'd never known. Not about the first, not the second, not any of it. Aaron continued, voice low. "She's been bad, like really bad, depressed. She said she doesn't want to be here anymore." He didn't have to say the word. I heard it anyway. "Suicidal." I swallowed hard. "Aaron, why didn't you tell me?" He let out a bitter laugh. "Because you think I'm the villain in your story, that's why." I flinched, but he wasn't done. "My job's on the line too," he said. "Real estate is cutting staff. They gave me 2 months to hit my targets or I'm out. And the debt." He rubbed his face. "We've got 45 grand in credit cards. Medical bills, therapy, everything." His voice cracked on the last word, and for a second, I saw him not as my enemy, but as a man drowning. I wanted to say something, to offer comfort, but then Jake's pale face flashed in my mind, his purple lips in my nightmares before they'd even happened. That machine blinking like a countdown. So I said the only truth I had left. "My son is dying, Aaron." He looked up at me then, and his eyes were bloodshot. "I know," he whispered. "I know, and it's not that I don't care." I stared at him, waiting for the part where he proved it. He leaned forward, voice urgent now, like he was trying to convince himself as much as me. "That trip, Europe, it's not a vacation. It's a last chance. Our therapist said Jessica needs a reset. Somewhere far from everything. Somewhere she doesn't feel like a failure." "Jake needs a reset too," I said, my voice going hard without my permission. "He needs lungs that don't rely on a battery." Aaron flinched like I slapped him. We sat there in silence for a moment, the kind of silence where you can hear other people laughing and it sounds like something obscene. Then Aaron said, "Look, if there's money left after we pay everything, after we get back, I'll help, I swear." He lifted his hand like he was taking an oath. I should have laughed. I should have walked out. Instead, I nodded once, because I was exhausted, because I wanted to believe my brother wasn't a monster, because hope is the cruelest drug in the world. When I got home, the house was quiet. Mom was in the kitchen, staring out the window like she'd been doing all week. I stood beside her, watching rain drip down the glass in slow, heavy lines. "Why?" I asked softly. She didn't turn. "Why what?" "Why did you side with Aaron?" My voice trembled. "Mom, Jake can't wait." Her shoulders stiffened, and for a second I thought she might snap at me. But when she finally turned around, her face wasn't angry. It was scared, a kind of fear I'd never seen in her before. "Ruby," she whispered, and her eyes filled with tears. "I'm old." I blinked, confused. "What does that have to do?" "It has everything to do with it," she cut in, voice breaking. "My pension isn't enough anymore. Prices keep going up. Medical costs, you think I don't feel it in my bones every morning?" She wiped her cheek angrily, like she hated herself for crying. "Aaron told me," she continued, "that once they're settled, he'll take me to live with them. He promised I wouldn't have to worry, and She swallowed, voice trembling. "I don't want to become your burden, Ruby." The words hit me like a slap. "My burden?" I repeated. "Mom, you're my mother." She shook her head, tears falling faster now. "And Jake needs everything from you. I see how tired you are. I see it. I didn't want to be one more weight on your back." I stood there stunned. In that moment, I realized something terrifying. My mother wasn't choosing Aaron because she loved him more. She was choosing him because she was scared. Because fear makes people selfish, even when they swear they aren't. I wanted to argue. I wanted to scream. I wanted to shake her and say, "Jake is a child, Mom. A child. He comes first." But the words got stuck behind my teeth. Because part of me understood it, and that made me sick. I left the kitchen without another word. I didn't know that would be the last real conversation we'd ever have. After that, I stopped asking. I stopped hoping my family would save us. I started looking outward. I called David, an old college friend who'd always been the practical one, the kind of guy who spoke in solutions, not comfort. He listened quietly while I explained the clinical trial, the deposit, the money. Then he said, "Sell your land, fast. If you can get that cash, I can float you the rest short term." It wasn't a promise. It wasn't charity. It was business. And somehow, that felt safer than family. I clung to that plan like a lifeline, because a lifeline was all I had. That night, Jake woke up twice, once drenched in sweat, eyes wide and scared, his small hand searching for mine in the dark. "Mom," he whispered, "I had a bad dream." I pulled him close, kissing his forehead. "I'm here. I'm right here." He nodded, breathing uneven, and I hated the machine for having to do what his body couldn't. When he finally fell asleep again, I sat in the tech room and stared at the backup batteries. One was already weak. The other, I hadn't checked in days. My fingers trembled as I picked it up. The indicator light flickered, then died. I froze. No, no, no. I tried the charger. Nothing. I opened the casing with shaking hands, trying to wipe moisture, to clean the contacts, to do anything. But the storm had been seeping into everything. Humidity, power outages, a tree had fallen on the lines down the hill. Our generator could keep the breathing machine running, but it couldn't charge the backup batteries fast enough. My heartbeat roared in my ears as I tore through the house searching for the third spare. The cabinet, the closet, under the stairs, the storage bin in the garage. Nothing. Then memory hit me like lightning. Last week, Jake's checkup. I'd packed a spare battery in the trunk of the family SUV, just in case. The SUV Aaron borrowed. I stumbled into Jake's room, and my blood turned to ice. He was sitting up in bed, face pale, lips already tinged blue. The breathing machine screen flashed red. "Low battery. Charge immediately." Jake looked at me with terrified eyes. "Mom," he whispered, "it's about to run out, isn't it?" My mouth went dry. My hands shook. I forced my voice into something steady, something that wouldn't scare him more. "Hey," I said softly, brushing his cheek. "It's okay. I'm going to fix it." I grabbed my phone and called 911. The dispatcher's voice was calm, almost bored, until she wasn't. "Due to landslides and flooding," she said, "ambulances are taking detours. Estimated arrival time is at least 45 minutes. I looked at the machine. 30 minutes left. I called Aaron. No answer. I called again. Still nothing. I called Mom. No answer. Jake's breathing hitched, his eyes filling with tears as he tried to keep calm for me. "Mom," he whispered, voice cracking, "am I going to die?" That question, coming from a child, ripped something open inside me. I grabbed his face gently, forcing him to look at me. "No," I said, each word like a vow carved into stone. "Not today, not ever, I promise." Then I ran. I ran to the garage, toward my grandfather's old car, the one that shook when it started and smelled like oil and dust and the past. Because the only battery that could save my son was driving away toward the airport, and if my brother didn't answer soon, I was going to chase my family down a flooded highway. The phone rang. Once. Twice. Each ring stretched like a lifetime, while Jake sat on the bed behind me, fighting for air, the machine screaming in sharp mechanical beeps that stabbed straight into my skull. On the third ring, Aaron finally picked up. "What?" he snapped. Wind roared through the speaker, the low hum of tires on wet pavement beneath it. "Ruby, what's going on? We're on our way to the airport." I didn't even stop to breathe. "The backup battery is dead," I said, words tumbling over each other. "The spare is in the SUV trunk. Jake needs it now. This is an emergency, Aaron." There was a pause, a heavy one. Then I heard Jessica's muffled voice in the background, asking what was happening. Aaron exhaled sharply. "Ruby, we've already gone almost a third of the way. The flight leaves in under 3 hours." My vision tunneled. "Aaron," I said, forcing my voice steady through sheer will, "Jake will die without that battery. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not being dramatic. He has minutes." Another pause. Then something inside me broke completely when Aaron added, almost casually, "Mom's with us too. She's asleep in the back seat. We promised to take her on this trip. She's dreamed about Europe her whole life." For a second I couldn't speak. My mother, my brother, my sister-in-law, all in one car, driving away. I swallowed a scream. "You need to turn around," I said, my voice shaking now. "Right now." Jessica's voice cut in sharply, louder this time. I couldn't make out the words, but I heard panic in it. Urgency. Aaron sighed. Okay, we'll turn back." Relief crashed into me so hard my knees nearly gave out. "Thank you," I breathed. "But," he continued, slower now, "it'll take at least an hour. Roads are terrible after all this rain." I looked at Jake. His chest rose and fell in short, desperate bursts. His lips were turning purple. The machine's screen flashed again. 25 minutes remaining. "An hour?" I whispered. "Aaron, he can't wait an hour." Silence. Then, finally, his voice came back, urgent now. "Take Jake and go. Drive toward Highway 101. I'll turn around right now. We'll meet there." I didn't hesitate. I wrapped Jake in his jacket, lifted him carefully into my arms, and carried him to Grandpa's old car. The rain had stopped, but it left the world soaked, heavy, unstable, like the earth itself was holding its breath. As I buckled Jake into the back seat, he grabbed my sleeve with weak fingers. "Mom," he whispered, "don't leave me." "I'm right here," I said, choking back tears. "I'm not going anywhere." The engine groaned when I turned the key, protesting like an old man dragged out of sleep. I whispered a prayer I hadn't prayed in years as I pulled onto the road. I kept calling Aaron as I drove. Once, twice, 3 times. No answer. Highway 101 stretched ahead like a scar cut through the hills. Water pooled in the low spots, reflecting the dull gray sky. Mud streaked the pavement. Rocks littered the shoulder like warnings no one listened to. In the rearview mirror, Jake lay curled on his side, clutching his chest. The breathing machine's warning beeps filled the car, relentless and cruel. "We're almost there," I lied softly. "Just keep breathing for me, okay?" "I'm trying," he whispered. I spotted the SUV's taillights ahead, glowing faintly through the mist. "There," I said, hope surging. "I see Uncle Aaron. We're going to be okay." Jake tried to lift his head, but his body betrayed him. He slumped back, gasping. The machine screamed again. 10 minutes, I honked, flashing my headlights wildly. The SUV slowed. Then, from the hillside to my right, I heard it. A deep, unnatural groan. Not loose rocks. Not gravel. Something bigger. My heart slammed into my ribs as I looked up. The hillside was moving. I saw the SUV ahead hesitate. Its brake lights flared red. The turn signal blinked once, twice. For a brief, terrifying second, I thought Aaron was stopping to help us. Then the SUV backed up. Slowly. Deliberately. It turned away from the danger zone and away from us. "No," I whispered. "No, no, no." I slammed on the horn, rolling down the window despite the cold rain residue in the air. "Aaron!" I screamed. "Come back! Jake is dying!" Across the distance, I saw his face through the rear window. He was looking at us. He saw us. Then the SUV accelerated, taillights shrinking as it fled. The ground shook. The sound grew louder, violent now, like the earth itself screaming. Jake coughed hard, a wet, terrifying sound ripping from his chest. "Mom," he gasped. "Where's Uncle Aaron? Why did he leave?" The innocence in that question shattered something inside me. Before I could answer, the hillside collapsed. Mud, rocks, and trees thundered downward. The first impact slammed into the car's roof, crushing metal like paper. The world tilted violently. I tried to turn the wheel, tried to reverse, tried to do anything, but the road was gone. In that frozen instant, I twisted toward the back seat, reaching for Jake. "Baby!" I screamed. His eyes were wide, filled not with fear, but trust. Absolute, unshakable trust. Our fingers brushed. "Mom," he whispered, lips barely moving. "I love you." "I love you," I sobbed. Then the car was lifted. Spun. Buried. Mud swallowed the windows. Glass shattered. Darkness rushed in like a living thing. The breathing machine went silent. In the last second before everything disappeared, one thought burned through me. I killed my son because I trusted my family. And then, nothing. When I woke up, the first thing I felt was pain. Not sharp, not screaming. Just everywhere. A deep, suffocating ache that wrapped around my chest, my head, my bones, like my body had been crushed and put back together wrong. The second thing I noticed was the light. Too white, too clean, too bright to belong to my world. Hospital. I tried to move and gasped. Fire exploded in my ribs. Something tugged painfully at my arm. Tubes, wires, beeping machines that sounded nothing like the one I'd memorized in my sleep. Then I saw her. My mother sat beside the bed, shoulders slumped, eyes swollen red like she'd been crying for days without stopping. "Ruby," she whispered when she realized I was awake. Her hand shot out, gripping mine like she was afraid I'd disappear. "Thank God. You're awake." My throat was dry, raw, like I'd been screaming underwater. "Jake," I croaked. The word barely made it to pass my lips. My mother froze. Her grip tightened painfully, then loosened. She turned her face away, and when she did, her shoulders started shaking. That was when the room collapsed. "No," I whispered. "No, where's my son?" I tried to sit up, ignoring the pain ripping through me. Alarms beeped. My vision blurred. "Jake," I said again, louder now. "Where is he?" The door opened, and a middle-aged doctor stepped in. Kind eyes. The kind doctors have when they already know you're about to break. He pressed me gently back against the bed. "Ms. Bailey," he said calmly, "you've been in a coma for 2 days. You have 5 broken ribs, a concussion, and significant blood loss. You're very lucky to be alive." "I don't care," I snapped, tears flooding my eyes. "Where is my son?" The room went silent. The doctor looked down for a moment, Then he shook his head, slowly, deliberately, like he was lowering a flag. "I'm very sorry," he said. "The rescue team found you and your son after 2 hours. You survived because of the airbag and luck. But the breathing machine ran out of battery before they reached him." His voice softened. "Jake passed peacefully. He didn't suffer." Something inside me shattered so completely that I didn't even scream. No sound came out, just a hollow, endless silence that swallowed everything. I felt my mother's voice before I heard it. "The funeral was yesterday," she sobbed. "I stayed. I chose a blue coffin, the color Jake liked. I put the Superman teddy bear you bought him for his birthday inside. Yesterday, my son had been buried, and I wasn't there. I didn't get to hold him, didn't get to kiss his forehead, didn't get to tell him one more time that I would always be his mother." Something cold and violent rose in my chest. "Where's Aaron?" I asked. My mother's crying stopped. When she looked at me again, her eyes weren't just sad. They were furious. "Aaron and Jessica continued their trip," she said, her voice shaking with rage. "I got out of the car when I heard about the landslide. They still got on the plane." I ripped the IV from my arm. Blood splattered onto the sheets. "I'll kill him!" I screamed. "He killed my son!" Nurses rushed in. Hands grabbed my shoulders. A needle burned my arm, and the world tilted, blurred, softened. As the sedatives dragged me under, one thought burned brighter than the pain. This isn't over. 2 weeks later, I went home. If you can call it that. The house felt wrong without Jake. Too quiet. Too empty. His room still smelled like clean sheets and plastic tubing and childhood. I walked past the stretch of Highway 101 where the landslide happened. The mud was still there. The scar in the hillside hadn't healed. Neither had I. The mailbox was stuffed with condolence cards I couldn't read. And one email. From Jessica. My hand shook as I opened it. "Ruby, I don't know how to begin. I'm writing this from a hotel in Paris. I left Aaron the moment we arrived. I can't stay with a man who caused his own nephew's death." My heart pounded as I kept reading. "There's something you need to know. I remembered the backup battery was in the trunk before you called. I told Aaron. He said it was fine, that Jake would be okay." My vision blurred with tears. "After you called, I fought with him. I screamed. I threatened to call the police if he didn't turn back. That's the only reason he agreed." I clenched my fists. Then came the sentence that nearly stopped my heart. "Aaron deliberately drove slower when he turned back. When I asked why, he laughed and said, 'If Jake dies, Ruby won't demand the insurance money anymore.'" I had to stop reading. I couldn't breathe. I forced myself to continue. "When we saw the landslide starting, I begged him to stop. He backed the car up and sped away. He saw you. He knew." My hands shook so badly I almost dropped the mouse. And then, the final blow. "One more thing. Aaron withdrew all $175,000 of your father's insurance money before the trip. He forged your signature and Margaret's. I've attached the bank records. I'm willing to testify in court." I opened the attachment. The evidence was undeniable. Dates, signatures, transfers. He'd stolen everything. One day before my son died, I leaned back in the chair, numb. Then something inside me hardened into steel. I wiped my tears. And I made a decision. Aaron Bailey wasn't just my brother anymore. He was a man who would answer for what he'd done. In court, no matter the cost. People like to believe that once you decide to fight back, things get easier. They don't. They just get clearer. After I read Jessica's email for the third time, I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I didn't collapse on the floor like people expect grief to look like. I stood up, and I started making phone calls. The lawyer I hired didn't sugarcoat anything. Civil court first. Fraud, negligence, emotional damages. Then, if the district attorney agreed, criminal charges. When my mother found out what I was doing, she begged me to stop. "He's still your brother," she cried, clutching my hands like she could pull me back into the past. "Nothing will bring Jake back." I looked at her and realized something painful and final. Nothing would ever bring Jake back. But letting his death go unanswered would kill what little of me was left. "I'm not doing this for revenge," I said quietly. "I'm doing this so my son didn't die for nothing." Aaron came back from Europe 2 weeks later. He didn't come to see me first. He sent messages, long ones, apologies soaked in self-pity, promises to explain, claims that everything had been a misunderstanding. I never replied. 3 months after the landslide, the courtroom felt colder than the rain-soaked highway ever had. Aaron sat across the room from me, thinner, paler, eyes sunken deep into his skull. He didn't look like my brother anymore. He looked like a stranger who shared my blood by accident. Jessica sat in the back, alone. My mother sat in the middle, physically between us, emotionally nowhere at all. When the judge entered, everyone stood. And when my lawyer began speaking about an 8-year-old boy, about a battery, about a choice made on a flooded road, I felt something inside me steady for the first time since Jake died. Jessica testified. Her voice shook, but she didn't break. She told the truth, every word of it. Experts testified next. Geologists confirmed visibility on Highway 101. Bank employees confirmed the forged signatures. Phone records showed Aaron had slowed down. Aaron denied everything at first. Then the evidence piled up, and he broke. I saw them, he admitted, his voice hoarse. I saw Ruby and Jake. I panicked. I only thought about myself. The judge's voice was calm when she delivered the verdict. Aaron Bailey was found liable for fraud and negligent conduct. He was ordered to return the stolen $175,000 and pay damages for emotional suffering. The district attorney announced a separate criminal case would follow. Aaron tried to speak to me as we left the courtroom. I'm sorry, he whispered, reaching for my hand. I didn't mean... I stepped back, not because I hated him, because I felt nothing. A few months later, he was sentenced to prison for negligent manslaughter and document forgery. 4 years. People said it was too harsh. Others said it wasn't enough. None of it mattered. Jake was still gone. I sold the house, packed what little I had left, and walked away from the place where my son learned how to breathe. I started working at a children's care center, not for the paycheck, but because the guilt wouldn't let me rest. Because every empty bed felt like Jake's. With the returned insurance money, I bought backup batteries, medications, emergency kits. I kept them in Grandpa's old car, the one pulled from the wreckage and rebuilt piece by piece. I called it Jake's Light. No signs, no charity events, no applause. Just quiet deliveries to families who didn't know how close they were to losing everything. A year later, my mother found me loading supplies into the trunk. She looked smaller, older. Do you want me to help? She asked softly. I didn't answer. I handed her a box of batteries and opened the passenger door. Forgiveness isn't a moment. It's a road you decide whether or not to walk, every single day. Sometimes, on the hardest nights, I drive to the place where the landslide happened. I sit there and talk to my son. I tell him about the children who get to live, about the parents who don't have to make the choice I made, about how his light still saves lives. I don't know if I'll ever forgive my brother, or myself, but I've learned one thing. Grief doesn't end, it transforms. And love, real love, doesn't die with the people we lose. It becomes the reason we keep going.